If you've been feeling the call to write a book, it is no accident. Your book is needed in the world, so let's make it happen. I'm Nicola, and this is the Unbound Writers Club. Hello and welcome to the Unbound Writers Club. Today I am joined by one of our newest authors at the Unbound Press, Delahrose Roobie Myer. I say one of our newest authors, but actually Delahrose has been floating around the Unbound writing community for quite some time. I think we first connected back in probably 2019, certainly pre-pandemic, when Delahrose was first feeling the call to write a book. And she has been on quite the journey since, until in August, her first book, Fatima's Alchemy, was released. Now, Fatima's Alchemy isn't just a book. It's described as a living oracle, a garden of mythic storytelling, poetic truths, and silk-spun soul reminders for those who crave more than an ordinary life. Yes, please. Delarose's journey to birthing this book has been quite something. The transformation she has experienced, and there is so much that I know you're going to resonate with from our conversation. So I'm really excited to introduce you to her. Let's dive in. So, Delahrose, welcome to the Unbound Writers Club.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be here and with your listeners and to share this conversation and see where it takes us.
Absolutely. I feel like I've been waiting for this one for a long time because we first connected like quite a few years ago. And I've been, just excited for what would come through in this conversation. But I always begin with the same question, which is what in particular makes you an unbound writer? Like, is there some like old belief that you've liberated yourself from? Is there something that you feel you're doing differently?
You know, it was an interesting journey finding you because I had taken part in a workshop that Kim had held, and it was called the Story Writing Adventure. And through that, I then felt the courage to reach out to you and speak to you online and see, do I hold the potential to write a book? And at that time, I was still thinking in the process of, oh my God, this is a publisher, like she'll know, she'll tell me what to do. She'll say, yes, you're a writer. No, you're not a writer. I was sort of anticipating that. And then when I met you and you were, very relaxed and very open and really wanting me to fill the gaps in and the sentences in, and I'm going, this feels really different. This feels really different. But what you did do was you gave me the belief in my potential and the courage to begin, to see myself in those eyes. And so to answer your question, it was because you allowed me to see myself in a new way outside of a structured system that depicts you either good or not good or right or not right. That was perfect for me because at the time when we spoke, I didn't even know what sort of book I wanted to write, because all I could think of is I can't write chapter after chapter after chapter. That's just not, I just can't see, like I've got a big story, but I don't really want to write a chapter after chapter book, And I remember, I'll never forget your first words to me, Delahrose, I feel the sort of book that you will write will be something very different. It won't be in that framework. And that actually was the match that lit the candle for me, to be honest, because that then gave me the liberty to think outside the box and to see myself from a completely different thread and not define myself as every other author or how books are supposed to be presented. And then I disappeared for a couple of years and then returned. Which is hilarious, really, because when I returned, I then brought you a couple of short stories that I'd written, and you went, "This is it. This is so powerful," which then gave me more fuel for the fire to keep going because I thought, "Oh, great. This is me. This is my
Mm,
signature. I am a short story writer. I'm not a long story writer." And that helped me categorize it in a way that gave me the liberty I needed to keep going.
beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. And to be honest, that's not unusual to like disappear for a couple of years and then, be in your process and then come back with something like like beyond magical. And what you came back with was Fatima's Alchemy, like this book, well, yeah, of short stories, but a big book, like like real an abundance of these short stories. And how did that idea to create Fatima's Alchemy like drop in for you? Because it feels like quite different from what we were talking about in our initial conversation. So when did that idea first spark off for you?
How that unfolded was the initial story that I had written in the storytelling adventure.
Mm,
And that was like so raw. I'll never forget that trying to read that story out loud, I was shattered. I was crying. I was gasping. I could hardly complete a sentence because it
mm,
was so raw. It was so internal. And I'd realized that I'd pretty much put my heart and my soul onto a piece of paper while it was still bleeding
mm,
at that time,
mm,
if that makes sense. And I realized that this was how I process is through writing.
mm,
And that's really how Fatima's Alchemy began, is I would sit and ponder my thoughts and ponder a lot of things that I was going through and working through, which were grief and trying to heal and reconcile and find meaning and medicine in all of this chaos that I had experienced. And then that then took me to a whole thread across my entire life, like 60 years of my life became this thread of stories. And then what I did was I started to write. I sat with that and I thought, well, I don't want to be just, constantly talking about all my wounds and
mm,
this is my pain. And, it was like it has to have something. And that's where Fatima arrived. And it was in a meditation. And I had this book. That's my intuition. Oh, that's my channel going off
wow.
because the presence comes through so strong when I start to tune into this thread, and
Mm.
it's magical. And a voice came to me and said, "Right through me."
Oh,
And I'm like, "Right through you." And it was like, ah. And then it reminded me of when I do shamanic journeys years and years ago, and I would be writing what lion said, or I would be writing what owl said, or
yeah.
what the tree spoke. And so Fatima became this presence. And as a child, I was put in a boarding school at 5 years old. So Mother Mary became a very big presence in my life, and sitting at her feet and speaking to her and asking her questions. And so Fatima became a dialogue that I was having with spirit about what was going on in my life and how do I process this and what does this mean and this is how I'm feeling. And that's how the stories were born, in all sincerity.
Mm,
And so I wrote a couple of little Fatima stories and put them on my Instagram page. Sort of, this was back just around COVID time.
mm,
And it just became my fun, in a way, just write this story. It was a way of me transcending myself out of what I was experiencing in real
mm.
time. And then I collected them. And then I was like, oh, okay, there seems to be something here.
Mm.
And so that is how I gathered up all these stories, because they became journeys that I took with my soul, and Fatima became my muse, and her offering to speak through her and to use her, so that I was talking to somebody. So I was talking to her, or I was talking about her, or I was telling a story of her. And that made it so much easier for me to be able to write and process and transcend and transmute the pain into medicine, not just for myself, but to be able to offer that to others. So so they were my stories and experiences, though told through Fatima's eyes.
Yeah, incredible, incredible. Totally shifts the energy. And like, I love that you found this way to express in collaboration with Fatima. I mean, it feels like there's so much freedom in that,
Yeah,
to allow yourself to do that.
there is, because it's like you're sitting in a therapy room, or you're
Mm.
sitting under a tree and you're speaking to a friend,
Yeah,
and you're sharing your story, and then your friend is saying, oh, well, this is what I'm seeing, or this is what I'm noticing, or so it was a dialogue.
yeah,
And that's how the stories were born, was through a dialogue of
mm,
me sharing real life experiences and pain and really raw moments,
mm,
and then hearing a dialogue reflected back at me. So it was dancing with a mirror all the
yeah,
time. And it
yeah.
was so magical. The power is so strong through me all the time now, and she's with me constantly. It's like this is my new life.
Yeah, yeah, like that physical, like, the listeners can't see, but I can see like this like physical movement that is happening as you're connecting with
Yeah,
with Fatima. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So
It's a
powerful.
It's a very powerful experience, and the most interesting part, and you perhaps can put this into probably a better language than myself, but the feedback that I've had about Fatima's Alchemy is people that I do not even know. So it's not like friends just wanting to
Mm,
share something happy with me. It's people I don't know, strangers writing to me and saying, it was like you were speaking directly to me.
mm,
It was like I could feel everything moving in me. And I am so honored to receive that. And I've had people frame some of the poetry or the mantras that I've put into the book in frames and put
mm.
them on their wall. And I'm going, my goodness, because she's impacting them in that way. And what I can offer to your listeners and your writers that are listening is that's the infusion,
Mm.
because of the integrity that I maintained while I was writing her, without questioning, just allowing that. Well, it's like being unconsciously conscious,
Yeah,
it's that stream of consciousness writing that wants to flow through, and keeping the integrity of that heart, even when you have to edit, even when you have to apply grammar and all of
yeah,
these things. It's like otherwise I'd end up with a sentence that's a whole page long, but
mm,
you get what I mean. So it was
totally.
like keeping the integrity of that. That's the essence, that's the heartbeat, and that is the infusion that is now being experienced by people that engage with her and read her, and because she's affecting them in so many different ways. It's very beautiful to hear.
Honestly, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like allowing that, trusting what's coming through rather than, our like impulse can be, like you say, to edit it or change it, but maintaining the integrity, like you say, of what's coming. Like, I can feel it. Like, Fatima's Alchemy is on my bookshelf. I mean, and like just having the book here in my office, yeah, it just I can feel her. It's so, so powerful. So I completely understand why people who are connecting with this book are having this experience that, like, absolutely, it goes beyond words. It's the energy of the book that is so, so powerful. I mean, for you, Delarose, did you experience any particular fears or doubts as you were writing and coming to the point of actually birthing this book?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I remember sending a a couple of heartbreak emails to
Mm.
both Emma on different occasions saying, "Oh, well, look, I don't anticipate anyone will want to buy this book, or I don't think it'll make many sales. So, I really can't focus on that." And da da da. Like I was pushing away, which is a pattern, and I want to own that pattern,
Mm.
which is a pattern. It's almost like canceling the potential before I even find out the reality
Yeah.
because I don't want to face the disappointment. So
Mm.
it's almost like, you feel like you're going to get fired from a job, so you quit the job before they have a chance to fire you.
Yeah.
It's sort of like I prepare myself for the worst, so then if the worst happens, I've got my bravado on, I'm all okay. I've got my armor on. I expected that, you know,
Totally.
is kind of the attitude. But I was deeply surprised at myself how I transitioned through that as well, and how I just kept moving with her energy. And I just went, well, no, this is about the essence of not only what came through me and not only my own stories, but it was who is she? And that's why, I did her astrology chart and I worked out her human design, and which I'm so appreciative of Unbound for allowing me to work with that energy as well and bring that to the wholesomeness of the whole body of work.
Mm.
And I could see that she had her own personality, like I thought she wanted to be born in June, and then it was like, well, that wasn't going to work. No, I'm definitely going to be a Leo. I don't care what you think. I'm a
Yeah.
Leo, right? Cancer. Forget it.
Definitely.
So it's like I kept working with that rather than resisting it. I just went, I want to see who is she becoming? Who is she?
Mm.
Because is she is an energy. She is alive. And that's why, I refer to her as a living oracle, because she is alive. She has a presence and a personality.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so important to us that we get to work with that, for each book and each author, rather than trying to, like, we know you can't control the timing of these books. They will do what they want to do. They will be what they want to be. And yeah, holding
I
space for that is so important.
I've read your posts and I've watched you and I've heard you say this so many times on your reels that the book takes you on a journey.
Mm.
And the truth is I still could not comprehend that until I began the journey,
Yeah.
and how it transformed me in the process as well. And it grounded me and it anchored me, and not in a way of like, oh, I want lots of people to read this book. I just was like, no, I feel so grateful and so honored that I was able to connect with people,
Mm.
unbound yourself, that would allow me enough liberty and breathing space to let that rise up inside of me and see what wanted to land on the page and how did that want to take shape.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a beautiful way and perfect way of describing it, like what wanted to rise up. And just going back to what you shared there around like the fears and doubts that were coming up, thank you for acknowledging that, because I know you're not alone in it. I definitely resonate with that piece around, like, don't get your hopes up, be prepared for the worst, whatever that is, and like, being in that kind of defensive place around it. I'm sure like there are lots of women and writers listening who resonate with that. And how are you feeling now? Fatima's Alchemy, she is going out there into the world. You've already talked about how, some of the feedback you've received. I guess what shifted for you with the actual release of this book?
Wow. Well, huge overwhelm was the
Mm,
first experience because it was going, holy Toledo, that like when I held her in my hands, like I was part of the process through everything. Even Linda was so generous to allow me to be engaged in the whole designing the interior process and the cover and everything. So I was engaged with all those elements, but when they finally came together and I ordered the first test copy,
mhm.
I held her. I was shaking. Like
Yeah.
I was literally shaking. And I remember picking the parcel up from the post office and opening the box in my car. And I videoed it because my daughter was overseas at the time and she couldn't be here. And she said, Mum, you've got to record it because I want to see it. And I was like, oh my God. And even on the video, I even said, look, I did it. I did
Mhm.
it. I wrote a book. Oh my God, I wrote a book. And, it doesn't matter anymore who reads it and who loves it or doesn't love it, because I could just cherish the fact that it was such a triumph for myself to get to that point where I wrote a book.
Mm,
Because, I had people 20 years ago say to me, Dolores, you should write a book. Your story's like mind blowing. You should write a book.
mm,
And I just would resist. Oh no, my spelling is terrible. My grammar is terrible. Oh my God, no, no, I can't write a book. My teachers told me I was stupid,
mhm,
like I didn't. And all of these scars came up, like all of these wounds just poured out of my pores. And so I just resist, but I would write very poetically because it was just the way I see the world, even
mm,
in my design or creative work. That was how I talked about my designs, is they were all personalities. And so it made sense to everybody except me. And
mm.
so it took so many years. And so then to finally sit and hold the book in my hands and go, oh my God, I did this.
Yeah.
I did this. It was a powerful moment to acknowledge myself,
Mm,
and everything else fell away because it wasn't so much about what anybody cared then. It was more about I did it.
mm,
And it was a piece of legacy that I wanted to leave to my daughter and offer her something that she can then pass on to her children. And the
oh,
way Fatima birthed was such a fascinating journey, like 158 short stories and written where you can open her as an oracle. You don't have to read her from story one through to the end.
mm,
It's just such fascinating. It was art in itself, and I'm like, whoa. So I've changed in that light where I'm not so concerned about wanting to, or expecting her to be held in great light, because I already know she's great light. Do you see that's the difference? It's like
totally.
not everybody has to love your dog. It's
Yeah,
all about you loving your dog.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I watched that video of you like sitting in your car. I had tears in my eyes. I've got tears in my eyes now as you're talking about it because, yeah, this is the thing. Like, our books will do what they're here to do, but the impact of that experience of like this is what I love about books because you have this physical object that is, I don't know, it proves like this proof that you have done this,
It,
this like symbol of what you've created. And as you were speaking there, Delahrose, I'm just thinking, thank goddess that you allowed yourself to move beyond all of those old stories about, oh, I'm not very good at spelling, I'm not very good at grammar. My teacher told me I was stupid. Like, again, I know so many will resonate. And like I say, thank the goddess that you actually allowed yourself to move beyond that and birth this incredible book, which, is like this beautiful beautiful work of art.
Yeah, she's sort of unique in and of herself because she doesn't even fit into a framework of
No.
something, you know. And because I've sort of thought, well, what sort of writing is this? Because it's so conversational and yet it's medicine at the same time. And so it's quite unique in how it come through, but that is not what was planned. It was
Mm,
not, I didn't sit down and practically, logically try to plan and say, well, this is how I'm going to construct my book. That's the magic of all of it. It comes through you. And so if there's really anything that I can offer your
mm,
listeners is to really trust yourself to move with the process that is in alignment with you and your heart, your integrity, your soul, and your way. Because I think our world needs that sort of unique art coming through rather than us having to construct ourselves into a uniform of, well, this is what everybody does. Because the healing you get from writing your book is beyond measure.
yeah.
It's beyond measure. And, think of it as if you decided to say, I'm going to do 100-kilometer run or 100-mile run, and you're going to build your body into doing that. And then you reach the finish line. It's not about the medal. It's not about anything. It's about you conquering those shadow voices within yourself that said you can't, you
Yeah.
know? And that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing. And when you get to the end of the process, you realize that that's the medicine you drink from all of it because everything else falls away and it becomes just cream and a bonus, and that's sweet and that's beautiful. But what it's given me, it doesn't matter if it's what people say or don't say because it's given me something that they could never say.
Totally.
Does that make sense? Because you reconcile with yourself
Yeah.
and you find a root system that you wouldn't have found if you hadn't have taken the journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. So much for sharing that. That I know there will be people listening who've maybe been thinking about writing a book, but, again, have had those old stories coming up. And, what you've shared through this conversation is almost kind of giving permission or an invitation to trust ourselves more deeply. And I love that you allowed yourself to go on this journey, Delahrose. I am so honoured and delighted that, I and we
That
got to
is,
hold space.
that is reciprocated because without your publishing company and the way that you have constructed your company and the way that you run it and how you encourage your writers to embrace their natural, unique art is that's just the liberty that we all need. And that there's no one else out there that's really offering that sort of template to give us the freedom to write in such a way. So that's like a gift in and of itself. And so I'm so grateful that I found you and that I connected and that I was able to return and bring something that continued to grow even after I had that last conversation with you
Mm,
and said, ready to write a book, I'm ready to commit.
yeah.
And that just grew because I thought I was going to write 80s stories. Just, and
We
then I
laugh.
realized I had all these stories, and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm pulling out my files and remembering, oh my God, there's this story. So it just kept coming.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just, and you gave me that freedom. You gave that flexibility to me, and I'm deeply grateful. And I can't recommend you enough, and your company, and all of the people that work with you and around you. Honestly, it is truly a magical group of people to work with and
Mm,
to be around. I mean, you all have magical thread, like nothing was a surprise. Oh, can I just align it with the astrology? Oh, no problem. You know, it was like nothing was a surprise. It was almost like, well, okay, this is normal language for these people. This is so wonderful.
I know. Well, I love that. I love that. People often say to me, "Oh, I know this might sound weird." It's like, no, it doesn't sound weird. Like, this is this is how we operate. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. So it was sort of like, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, I don't know whether you've ever seen that movie that was called Avalon.
No,
It had
oh, I need to
Oh,
watch that.
it's so old. It was on video, right? I don't even think you can get it now, but it was called The Myths of Avalon. And
Oh,
it just reminded me of women and the circle of women, you know, where you gather and you allow each other's magic to come through. Whether, you know, someone has the gift of sight, someone has the gift of creation, someone has the gift of elements or whatever. That's what I found here was we were all embraced for our unique craft and our essence and what we were brought into. We weren't expected to put on a uniform and do it the same as everybody else.
no, definitely not. Definitely not.
Definitely
Oh,
not.
Delahrose, thank you so much for being in the Unbound Writers Club today. For those who are listening, who want to connect with you, who want to find out more about you and Fatima's Alchemy, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can connect through my website, which is delahrose.com. Otherwise, I am on Instagram as @Delahrose, and I have a separate Instagram page called Fatima's Alchemy on Instagram, but there is information on my website about Fatima's Alchemy. And for UK listeners, she's available at I think it's
It
Waterstones, is
is,
it?
yeah, it is. Yeah,
Waterstones. And then for the international community, it's Amazon.
yeah,
And Australia, it's Angus and Robinson Bookstore or
amazing,
Booktopia.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll make sure all the links are in the show notes. Like I said, thank you so much, Delahrose. Such a rich and
So,
powerful conversation. I'm so
it
grateful for you.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for everything. I mean, and all the generosity that you brought through the whole process of your energy, of your insight, just holding the space. Like, even if we weren't in contact physically, it was just feeling that I was being held by a community of people that they really cared about how unique this could come through. Yeah.
You're so welcome. Thank you, my
It's so
love.
good. Magical journey. Thank you.